Welcome to the Face Music Podcast. My name is Matt and I'm your host. Welcome to episode number 43. Sorry, it's been a little while. Today's episode is sure to be an ass kicker though. Today's top 10 is full of face-melting guitarists. I can't wait to tell you all about the Projekt Xero show that just happened. And I have a very special guest on today's show. You know him from Sabotage. You know him from the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Mr. Chris Caffery is on the show today. Stay tuned. You ready? Let's do it. What is up? What is up? And how are all of you doing? I missed you guys, and I hope you missed me too. It's been quite a month since we last spoke. I had a lot going on, but also, as I'm sure you can tell, I'm just getting over being sick again. And if you've listened through the past year, you know that when I get sick, my voice just fucks right off. You gotta love it. Struggling, but I'm doing better today than I was even a day or two ago. It got so bad over the weekend that I actually had to tell everybody I cannot talk to you. I cannot use my voice because the irritation was making me nauseous. But speaking of this past weekend, happy Easter to all who celebrate, and if you don't celebrate, happy Sunday. We are about a week away from one of the biggest events of the year. For my fellow wrestling fans, this is like our Super Bowl. WrestleMania is next week. So, last year, I had you guys vote on some fun wrestling-themed stuff for our top 10. Turns out a lot of you, like me, are wrestling fans. I think last year we did all-time best wrestlers theme song. We're going to change it up this year. Obviously, I don't want to repeat the same thing, but I'm going to throw something at you probably Monday or Tuesday. It's not going to last very long, probably a day or so, because I need time to record and, put everything together and get it out by next weekend for you guys. But keep an eye out. We're going to have some fun with this one this year. I am super excited for today's show, my friends. It feels real good to be back, and what a way to make a return than with this episode. Our top 10 is dedicated to the shreddiest of guitarists, and of course to my special guest, someone who is no stranger at all to completely tearing it up on a guitar. One of my all-time favorite guitarists, Mr. Chris Caffery from Sabotage and the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, is on today's show, and I couldn't be more excited or more honored to have interviewed him. We'll get to the interview in just a little bit, but first, let's hear from our sponsors. My friends, last week, or I'd say last episode, we celebrated 1 year of the Face Music Podcast, and this was something that I'd wanted to do for a long time. If you guys have been following the show, you know that. When the opportunity or the free time presented itself to do it, I decided that it's time. Full speed or nothing. This was either going to work or it was going to go down in flames. And I was so afraid of failure that it actually took me an extra month just to find the nerve to hit record on the camera and pull the trigger. I was convinced that I was going to suck at this. I was convinced that my insecurities were correct and that I should just give up before I make a fool of myself. Well, one day I sat here on my computer and I wrote out a script. I rehearsed it for hours. I had a vision for what I wanted to do, and the smallest step turned out to be what I needed in order to become comfortable. I just hit record and I had fun. Now, I'm over a year in. I love this. I find this to be therapeutic in a way. Consider what therapy actually is, though. It's that small step we take that ultimately leads us to finding out something new about ourselves that we didn't know, or leads us to do things that we didn't think were possible. All it takes is that one step, that one thought that says, I'm only hurting myself by not trying something new. Guys, I am proud to have BetterHelp as a sponsor on today's video. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier. It's extremely simple. You just take the quiz and you'll be matched with a licensed therapist in most cases within 48 hours. The best part is that you can communicate with your therapist how you feel the most comfortable, either text, phone, or video call. If your therapist is not the right fit for you for whatever reason, you can switch to someone new at no extra cost to you. There's been over 6 million people to date who've gotten help through BetterHelp, earning them a 4.8 out of 5 rating on the App Store. If you feel as though you're struggling with that first small step, my friends, I invite you to click the link in the description of this video, or please go to betterhelp.com/theftmpod and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Guys, recently I partnered with Nevin Eyewear, one of the most trusted brands in optics out there. I love a new pair of sunglasses, especially ones that are comfortable, look good, feel good, and offer good protection from the sun. Nevin Eyewear are also big in the metal world as well. Some musicians with their own official Nevin Eyewear sunglasses include Tim Howley and Patrick Sheridan of Fit for an Autopsy, Gary Holt of Exodus and Slayer, Zach J. Johnson of The Ghost Inside, Tanner Wayne, formerly of In Flames, and so many more. Head to the link in my bio to buy yours today for a discount off your first order. First timers, welcome to the Face the Music family. This is your place for all things hard rock and metal. This is your time to turn off all the bullshit that is stressing you out. There is no politics here. There's no stress, just music and good conversation. I sincerely hope that you enjoy. All of my returning listeners, thank you so much for coming back once again for another episode of the Face the Music podcast. My friends, I'm feeling it. I think it's time for the episode 43 top 10. 43 weeks in, this puts us at around 430 songs. That's going to be around 27 hours of top tier, carefully curated, ass-kicking hard rock and metal, and absolutely none of that AI bullshit. All of the bands on my top 10s are original acts. They are great, hard-working musicians, and all of them have earned my full respect. This week's top 10, I promised you a little bit of Shreddy Krueger. All my friends, I am here to deliver. This week, we will hear from the guitar gods and some lesser-known guitarists that I think you need to keep on your radar. We will be hearing from Rainbow, Extreme, Divine Bloodline, Chris Caffery, Electrocutioner, Adrenaline Mob, Van Halen, Machine Head, Illusions, and Pantera. Just a heads up, if you are watching this on YouTube right now, you will not hear the clips of the songs in the top 10 due to YouTube's ridiculous licensing, but you can hear the show as intended on Spotify, and there's a full playlist of all the songs from every top 10 on Spotify. I'll drop a code on the screen after the top 10 for you. Kicking us off at number 10 this week, out of Montreal, we have melodic death metal band Divine Bloodline. These guys have been around for a few years now. They have some recordings up, and they have an insane sound to them. When looking for bands this week, and I came across these guys, it just made sense. They're heavy, they shred, they have a great sound, and I feel like if they keep working as hard as they are, they may crack the code on the industry and blow up. These guys, keep them in your sights. They're young, they're hungry, and they can play their fucking asses off. At number 10 this week, we have Divine Bloodline off of their 2024 EP, Kings of the Night. This is A Resurrected Warrior. At number 9, this band, man, I used to be at every single show these guys did back in the day. Once known as Ashes in the Sky, later changing their name to Illusions. These dudes were a true pleasure to watch perform. It was like watching Pantera with two guitarists, and they're both Dimebag. Imagine if Avenged Sevenfold and Pantera had a baby. These guys were for sure my favorite local band for a while, and when they did their name change, they swapped drummers. Their old drummer was actually replaced by my dude Gunther, who I've talked about on the show tons. Today's number 9 song is actually the debut single they released as Illusions, the first single released with Gunther behind the kit. It was a monstrous and thunderous sound, and it kills me that this band is not together anymore. Andrew, Dave, Tony, hope you guys are doing well. Gunther, get your ass back on the show sometime. Let's talk about all the new releases that you've recently had coming out for yourself, too. Friends, at number 9 this week, this is Illusions with Nightmare. At number 8, also out of the New York scene, we have thrash band Electrocutioner. I had Mark from Electrocutioner on the show last year, and their drummer Tyler on a separate episode. Tyler was more so to talk about his career currently in prong, but Mark really gave me the lowdown on Electrocutioner, what they're about, what their songwriting is inspired from. It was a really great interview, and I really suggest you guys go watch. You'd be surprised where people pull their lyrics from, what inspires people. And I have to say, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but Mark is a very gifted lyricist. He's a very gifted songwriter as well. But guys, Electrocutioner, they are back with another absolute rager, and this song just rips. They are keeping thrash going, and they just get better with every release. Go support these guys. Go see them live. Buy merch. Buy an album. Stream their shit. Whatever you do, make sure that you do something to show them some love. Great job on this one, boys. Coming in at number 8 this week, this is Electrocutioner with Rise of the Nuke Romancer. Coming in at number 7, we have our first legend on the list. We have a few actually. The 70s and 80s had so much fucking star power that we look back on today and realize what lightning in a bottle truly was, and also how often it happened. Let's go back to the year 1976 on the album Rising by the band Rainbow. On drums, we had Cozy Powell. On bass, we had Jimmy Bain. On keyboards was Tony Carey. On vocals, we had one of the best singers to ever exist, Mr. Ronnie James Dio. And on guitars, our spotlit instrument for today, we had the legendary guitarist who is also a founding member of Deep Purple, of Rainbow, of The Outlaws, of Blackmore's Last Night, the one and only Mr. Ritchie Blackmore, who, fun fact, resides right here on Long Island nowadays. Incredibly, just a legendary grouping of musicians who wrote songs together, and I don't know if they even understood the elite lineup that they had back then. They had to know they were good. They didn't. I don't know if they knew how great they were, and that's something that always kind of throws me through a loop. Is that what we look at today as the greats, back then they were just the guys, they were just the guys that you knew, the guys that you wanted to work with. But today We look at Dio as a god. We look at Richie Blackmore as a god. It's like, we would consider that a supergroup. Who knew in 1976 if that was a supergroup or if that was just, yeah, these are my friends. We're going to put a record together. It's crazy to think about. But I don't know if they knew what they had back then. I don't know. I don't know. It's crazy. Rainbow, though, had not only some of Dio's finest work, but also some of Blackmore's. And Cozy found his mark too, like in today's number 7 song. One of the most famous drum intros of all time. Just straight chaos before locking into one of the smoothest grooves. Dio's soaring vocals, Blackmore's amazing guitar playing. This is rock at its finest and its purest. At number 7, off of Rising, this is Rainbow with Stargazer. Coming in at number 6, there isn't much that I can even say about this band other than they are one of the best of all time. With one of the greatest guitarists of all time. Hailing from Pasadena, California, the brothers, the band Van Halen. Fun fact that maybe some of you don't know, when Eddie and Alex started out playing music as kids, Eddie actually wanted to play the drums. Alex wanted to play guitar. We almost never got EVH as we knew him, which is crazy to think about. Eddie was early on inspired by classical music. He took piano lessons, and he wanted to incorporate classical pieces and influence into his playing. A large part of Eruption, I would say almost the entire second half of Eruption, is derived straight from a classical piece. Eddie was such a multifaceted guitarist. He was able to write the lighter, poppier, more, I guess you can call it hard rock stuff. Like Dreams, Right Now, Jump, Beautiful Girls, but then he was also able to just lay down the fucking law and get down and dirty with it, with songs like On Fire, Center Swing, Mean Streets, Humans Being. No matter the song, though, he found a way to just dance all over the fretboard. I'm so grateful that I got to see Van Halen as many times as I did. It was such a privilege to see the Van Halen brothers do their thing on a stage together. Guys, you all know who Eddie Van Halen is. You all know who the band is. But I'm not going to be playing Panama or Jump or Ice Cream Man or any of the popular shit for you guys today. Today, I'm going to give you a deep cut. I'm going to give you a gritty, bluesy song off of Women and Children First. One of my all-time favorite Van Halen songs. At number 6 this week, this is Van Halen with Take Your Whiskey Home. Our number 5 spot this week, we have a band extremely similar, I caught my own pun there, to Van Halen. Not only are they similar in style and sound, but for a while they actually shared a singer. I'm talking about the voice of Van Halen 3, Gary Cherone, and the band Extreme. Nuno Bettencourt is one of the smoothest, flashiest, and yet most tasteful and impressive guitarists of our time. Extreme came around. They came out of the Boston scene around 1985 and really started to pop off a few years down the line. It didn't happen immediately for them, but their first album, Extreme 1, released back in 1989. The second album, though, Extreme 2, Porno Graffiti, was released in 1990, only a year later, and this is where things really started to pop off for Extreme. it was loaded with hits, like He-Man Woman Hater with one of the best guitar intros ever. It was definitely Nuno Betancourt's answer to Eruption. But funny enough to say, it was never a challenge to Eruption or Cathedral or anything that Eddie had done, because Nuno was a helicopter. I'm sorry, guys. Nuno was such a big Eddie Van Halen fan that he never wanted to try to one up Eddie. He wanted to be Eddie. He wanted to be like Eddie. So everything he did respectfully to challenge himself like Eddie. But also other songs that were on there, aside from He-Man Woman Hater, they had When I'm President, they had Decadence Dance. Me and my wife Rosalie, we actually used an Extreme song as our wedding song. We used More Than Words. Get the Funk Out is also on that song. This album, it's a masterpiece from front to back with some of the finest guitar work that I've ever heard in my life. I'm going to give you guys a different one today that's not on that album. I'm just trying to stay in the spirit of deeper cuts that you may not know from popular stuff. But I encourage you to check out everything Extreme has released. It is phenomenal music, especially if you're into rock that gets a little heavy and a little funky. It's groove all the way. You guys know how I am about that. But they are a criminally underrated and under the radar band, and I'm so glad that Nuno finally got some much deserved recognition last summer at the Back to the Beginning show. He's a god amongst men. Today, though, I'm going to go back to the band's third album, Three Sides to Every Story. This one has such bluesy playing, a bit of homage to Hendrix, and a pocket groove for days. It's also one of my favorite solos in the band's entire catalog. At number 5, this is Extreme with Rest in Peace. Coming in at number 4 this week, guys, we crank up the high gain, we plug into those Randall cabs, and we thrash like a son of a bitch. We have Pantera coming in hot at number 4 this week. Everybody knows Pantera. Everyone knows Diamond Vinny, how both of those fantastic dudes are no longer with us. Dime being tragically murdered in front of Vinny in December 2004 at a Damage Plan show. He was shot and killed on stage by a crazed fan who blamed Dime for breaking up Pantera. Vinny would go on to form Hell Yeah with Chad Gray and Greg Tribbett after Mudvayne would disband, but unfortunately, Vinny also passed away June 22nd, 2018, due to having an enlarged heart and coronary artery disease. Vinny was one of the kindest human beings that I've ever met. It still fucks me up that he's gone. Vinny and Dime, much like Eddie and Alex, they were born to play. They were born to do music together, so they did. Vinny also being one of the hardest hitting, grooviest drummers to ever do it, and Dime just taking what we thought we knew about guitar and doing it faster, heavier, louder, angrier, and just making it fun. The band's debut album, Pantera, as we know them to be, not that Metal Magic, the glam rock thing. We're not going to talk about that. Pantera, as we know them, had their debut in 1990. It was the album Cowboys from Hell. Arguably the band's most loved album, arguably the greatest debut album ever to come out in the metal genre. I know you guys are going to fight me on that one, but I'm going to stick to it. But this album gave us the title track, Cowboys from Hell. It gave us Primal Concrete Sledge. It gave us Cycle Holiday, Cemetery Gates, Heresy, The Art of Shredding. One of the band's heaviest tracks. I mean, really, there's no bad songs on this entire album. But the song that comes in at our number 4 spot today, also on this album, a song that unfortunately live they split with Hollow. which I wish they would just do both songs separately because they are so damn good on their own. But you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm not giving you the 101 proof today. Today I'm giving you the Cowboys from Hell version. This is Pantera at number 4. This is Domination. Before we get into our top 3 songs of the week, here's a quick recap of our top 10 so far. At number 10, we had Divine Bloodline, A Resurrected Warrior. At number 9, we had Illusions with Nightmare. Number 8, we had Electrocutioner, Rise of the Nucromancer. At number 7, we had Rainbow with Stargazer. At number 6, we had Van Halen, Take Your Whiskey Home. At number 5, we had Extreme with Rest in Peace. And at number 4, we just heard from Pantera with Domination. At number 3 this week, dude, it's a list about shreddy ass guitar solos and the riff masters that play them. This list cannot be completed without talking about Machine Head. Machine Head have been on my top 10 quite a few times, but here's the thing that you may not know about the band if you aren't a fan or even if you're just a more casual fan. They had a very nu metalish / hardcore sound for their first few albums. From Burn My Eyes to The Burning Red, Through Ashes of Empires, Supercharger, they weren't really known as much for the crazy dual leads and solos that they've become synonymous for now. All of that, though, changed back in 2007 when the band dropped the album that would change the entire course of their career, The Blackening. This album, to this day, is regarded as a modern metal classic, many, including myself, saying that it is the millennial generation's Master of Puppets. It's truly a masterpiece of an album. Incredibly well-composed songs, the lead work is nothing like they've ever recorded prior, the drums were relentless, the bass just growling and ominous. Every single song was insane on this album. This album did so well for the band that not only did it put them in the spotlight and afford them huge opportunities, but it reestablished their name in the metal scene, and they have never stopped trying to one-up themselves since. The Blackening was an insanely popular album, still a fan favorite, which is why every single Machine Head show ends with the song that I'm about to play for you now. At our number 3 spot off of The Blackening, this is the anthemic, the massively bouncy, fun, and mesmerizing track. Phil Demmel and Rob Flynn on the leads. This is Halo. At number 2 this week, I want to tell you about a band that was a place in time, a supergroup that was one of the most ridiculously insane lineups I have ever seen. The original lineup of this band was Mike Portnoy on the drums, John Moyer of Disturbed was on bass, Russell Allen of Symphony X was on vocals, and the crazy to say, the least well-known dude in the entire band, but the one that absolutely fucking stunned me, Mr. Mike Orlando on guitar. Mike is legitimately one of my favorite guitarists ever since the second that I heard Adrenaline Mob the first time. If hearing them was not enough, seeing this madman live is an entirely different experience. You don't want to believe what you're hearing, and then when you see it happen in front of you, and if you're me, you're left completely speechless. Now, Mike is also known for Sonic Stomp and his project with Jason Bittner, John Bush, Phil Demmel, Jack Gibson called Category 7, which Mike also recorded and produced at his home studio, Sonic Stomp Studios. Mike, I hope you're watching this, dude. I would love to have you on the show sometime. I am such a fan. I'm very excited to hear that Category 7 is also recording their next album. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any coming back, though, for Adrenaline Mob, especially after everything that they've been through, from the unexpected loss of AJ Pero, who would replace Mike Portnoy for their second album and touring cycle, to the absolutely horrific bus accident that would take the life of David Z, who replaced John Moyer. Their tour manager was also lost in that accident. Luckily, most of the band and crew walked away with non-life-threatening injuries. But getting back to the point, though, here, Adrenaline Mob and Mike Orlando were a treat to experience, and getting to share the stage with these guys a while back was such a great memory for me. I'm so happy to share the song with you guys today, to expose you to this music, to turn you on to a guitarist that you might not have ever heard of before, that I swear to you, one of the best that I've ever seen live. One of the most, I can't believe that he could play that kind of guitarists. Go check out his Instagram, go check out his really anything he does. Go follow Mike Orlando. He will play shit that makes you question reality. But our number 2 song this week, this is Adrenaline Mob. This is Mike Orlando. This is the song Feel the Adrenaline. And finally, number 1, a guitarist whom I am not only a huge fan of his playing, but everything he's about. He's as down to earth as can be. He's got a huge heart. Every year, he's a part of millions of people's Christmas traditions, mine included, for almost 20 years now. And every holiday season, he and the rest of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra is responsible for thousands and thousands of dollars in donations to charities across this country for families in need. He's also the guitarist in Sabotage. He shreds like a motherfucker, and he is also my special guest on today's show. As I do every time our guest is featured on our top 10, I don't really give you a lot or a very long description because you're going to learn so much about them in the interview. So, short and sweet, Chris Caffery is taking our number 1 spot off of his 2015 album, Your Heaven is Real. This is Hot Wheels. Every week, I am proud to feature both signed and independent bands from all over the world. From the USA to Japan, from the UK to Australia and beyond, I find a lot of bands but only deliver the best of the best directly to you. It's my favorite part about doing what I do. Supporting music is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and I do it because if you're listening, we share that passion. Go follow all of these bands. Let's help them grow together. You could be responsible for putting someone's name on the map. All it takes is stream their music, follow their page, and tell someone about them. It's so simple. You could be the reason that a band gets discovered. And how cool is that? You can find the Face the Music Top 10s playlist featuring all the bands right here on the podcast by either searching on Spotify or scanning the code that is on your screen now. Bands, friends, if you would like to be a guest on the show, let's set it up. Just a heads up though, I'm booked about a month out already, meaning if you record with me today, your episode will probably not air for a few weeks up to a month. So please don't wait. If you want to be a guest on the show, hit me up ASAP. 2026 is already shaping up to be a hell of a year, and I'm really just kind of pushing as far as I can. So please don't wait for the schedule to be completely full. Before we know it, the year's going to be done. I hate saying that in April, but it is what it is, you know. Shoot me an email at theftmpod@gmail.com or just message me on Instagram. Guys, if you have not already, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast on Spotify and on YouTube. I am on a mission to reach 100 subs by June. That's not a lot of time, but also it's been a year. It's time to get shit going. So when you subscribe, you automatically get notified when new episodes are posted. Go follow my socials, Instagram and Facebook. Despite my better judgments, despite everything that I stand for, my buddy Dylan is slowly talking me into getting a TikTok. So if that happens, I'll let you know. I'm begrudgingly against it, but I feel better about it now that, you know, the information is not being sold to foreign entities. But if that goes live, I'll let you guys know. But for right now, it's just Instagram and Facebook. And if you see something on social media that intrigues you, just engage with it. The commenting, the conversations, it all helps the algorithm, and I thank you guys. I appreciate your support. Upcoming show dates: April 26th, just a couple weeks away. I will be a featured vendor at the Devoted Fusion album release party for their newest release, Ship Me to Heaven. That is at Amityville Music Hall, Amityville, New York. It's a Sunday show. It's early, starts at 3:30, kicks off with Gavel Down, my boys. So come chill, have a beer or two with me, and hang out and stick around for some great music. May 1st. This is a newer announcement, and I don't remember if it was on our last episode, but here we go. So May 1st, Projekt Xero takes the stage again. This will be our third show. We were invited to take part of this by our good friends in Evanescence. Obviously, they're an Evanescence tribute band, but Emmy had a spot open that she was booking at the Spotlight Bar at Paramount on Friday, May 1st. So she invited us to be a part of it, and of course we said yes. Emmy, we love you for that. Thank you so much for thinking of us. We can't wait to party with you guys. The bar is directly next to the Paramount, so when you walk up to the building, it's a big open thing. You walk right in. This is free, completely free of charge. The thing is, it is a late show. This is it's basically for overflow for the Dayseeker and North Lane show that's happening right next door. So if you happen to be at that show at the Paramount, the actual venue, come next door afterwards. Have a few beers, throw down with some great nostalgic music, and have some fun. And if you are going, tag me. Let me know. Let's meet up. You know, I would love to see you guys. Love to meet some of you guys. But yeah, if you are going, have a great time, and hopefully I see you next door for a fun hang. We're going on super late, so I don't blame you if you don't want to stick around. But hey, you know what? You're young. Do it. Do it while you can. 2 days later, May 3rd. These are my boys. I'm always going to shout out my friends. I'm always going to help promote my friends. Resistor has their first and quite possibly their only hometown show of 2026. They are bringing a monstrously stacked lineup back to Amityville Music Hall with the band Filth, celebrating 10 years of Filth. Also performing, we have Monochromatic Black, Infurious, Farsight, and my boys in Dead Within Days. The show kicks off at 5:30 p.m. It's going to be a killer show, so make sure that you get your tickets and get down there. Arrive early, stay late. You guys know the routine. May 30th, New Jersey, it is time to show up. Another Projekt Xero show for you. This time we're playing QXTs in Newark. We are playing with a bunch of sick-ass tributes for a great night of new metal and metalcore. We have Crownless Kings covering Killswitch Engage. We have us covering Linkin Park, obviously. And we have the band Redefined, the New Jersey band, not the South Carolina band. Shout out to Redefined South Carolina, though. Redefined in New Jersey, they are split into two different bands that night, two different singers and stuff. One section is covering Seven Dust, who I'm so excited about because I love Seven Dust. Any excuse to hear their music live, I'm down for. And the other side is Limp Bizkit, which you can't go wrong with either. We just threw down with the Limp Bizkit band last weekend, and it was so much fun. So I can't wait to do it again. The music never gets old to me. It's all about fun. Tickets are $15 in advance for this one, or $20 at the door. So make sure you buy early and save some money. We hit the stage at 10 p.m. This one goes late as fuck, so please stay, have some fun with us, enjoy the night out. In case you missed it, I announced a big one for July 17th over at City Sounds in Ronkonkoma. I have my good friends in Kilbarron coming all the way up from Maryland making their New York debut. I am so excited to finally meet these dudes. I've been jamming their music on the podcast for a while now. I interviewed them last year, and man, what a good bunch of guys. I am so happy to be able to host this show, again, alongside Moongroove Records. Kilbarron are bringing their good friends in Astrocats along for the ride, and we're bringing some of the best that Long Island has to offer in our own talent pool to round out the bill. We have my longtime homies in Path We Choose headlining this event. We also have Tethered, who are absolutely incredible. We have Rominer, another amazing band. I love all these guys. It's going to be an amazing night, and we will most likely have the return of Fat Boys Barbecue Bus return for this show. They showed up for us at the Projekt Xero show last weekend. They were so good. The food was incredible. They were very kind, very good people, and I would love to work with them again. I'm drawn to working with people who are just naturally good people. So big shout out to them. $18 Dave's show, cash or Venmo is accepted. Guys, I want to take a minute to recap the truly incredible show March 28th at City Sound in Ronkonkoma. I want to start by giving a huge shout out to Doug and Rob at City Sound. Another very special shout out to Fred and Fat Boys Barbecue Bus, who brought some of the best food that I've ever had from a food truck. That brisket sandwich, chef's kiss, dude. You can definitely catch Fat Boys Barbecue Bus at more of my upcoming events. You all seem to really enjoy the food, so let's keep that party rolling. I know that Fred would appreciate the business too. So if you come to one of my shows, expect to see them there. Best brisket I think I've ever had. And that's saying a lot. So, big thank you to the MySpace band and to Break Stuff for being so much fun to share the stage with. The entire night just felt like one big party. The MySpace band brought us classics from the late 90s and early 2000s like Jimmy Eat World, Gorillaz, Eiffel 65, Papa Roach, and many more. They were a blast to watch, and big shout out to Chris Rogers. My man, you are just out of your mind. What a great frontman. You're so much fun to watch, dude. I'm a fan. Break Stuff closed the night, and I know that I'm skipping Projekt Xero here for a second, but we'll circle back to that in just a minute. Break Stuff was beyond legit. From red caps to face masks, they put it down just as any Limp Bizkit band should. Just rough and rowdy. They ran through everything that you'd want to hear. Chocolate Starfish, My Way, Nookie. I had to leave for a little bit, maybe like 10 minutes or so, to go settle up some cash and tie up, loose ends for running the show up front. But I'm pretty sure when I was up front, I had also heard Faith and Take a Look Around, which that's two of my favorites. But when I returned to the party, the boys were just wrapping things up. They were about to start playing break stuff. The whole crowd was into it. Everybody was singing along, and that bridge came around, and you guys know what I'm talking about. I see my boys, Alec and Travis from Projekt Xero, right up front. I made my way over to them because I knew that it was about to pop off. Everyone's singing with their singer, Chris, and then they hit the line. The big drop hits, "I'll break your fucking face tonight." Pit instantly opened up. I had no intentions on moshing when that night started, but you better believe that I was right in the middle of it when it ended. Break stuff was so much fun, and I would happily play with them and the MySpace band again anytime. Now, let's talk about Projekt Xero. Thank yous are definitely in order first here. First up, thank you to the coolest mom and dad on the planet, Ray and Justin, for not only taking the 2.5-hour trip from Jersey, but for bringing your little girl with you and let her have the time of her life. It was a true joy getting to see her mosh, to move with the music, just enjoy herself as much as she did. It was such a pleasure meeting both of you as well, and I look forward to seeing you at another show. Hopefully you're coming to QXTs. I would love to see you again. Next, I would like to thank my friend Kelly for taking the trip all the way from Philly just to come see me play. Dude, that's the coolest. Like, thank you so much for coming out, and I hope you had a great time. I know that you don't go to local shows. I know that this is a new experience for you, so hopefully this was a good experience. Next, Chris and his daughter Jenna. It was so cool seeing you guys. Jenna, pleasure to meet you. Chris and I traded guitars a few months ago. I traded my ESP Baritone V for a Schecter 6-string, and that forged a little bit of a friendship, and it was cool talking to Chris and keeping in touch with him, and it was very cool that you came out, man. I'm very, very glad that we kept in touch, and I hope to see you in another one. I can't wait to go see your daughter play too, and dude, it's a pleasure knowing you. Really, it sincerely is. You're a good guy. Another big thank you. Someone I thank at every single show that I've ever played. I mean, from 2015 forward, anyway. My wife Rosalie, who held it down, just slinging merch for me all night for the podcast, and quite possibly, just doing everything she can. Like she really hustles it. She sets everything up. She maintains everything. She talks to people for me when I'm not there. She hands out business cards. She takes in money for shirts. She keeps stock of everything for me. Like, it's unbelievable. So big thank you for my wife, who I really quite literally can't do anything without. She keeps my life together for me. But arguably the biggest thank you that I have to give for that night is to the 50 people, the 50 people that came through that door and said they were there to see Projekt Xero. That is batshit crazy to me. 50. Absolutely incredible. At our first show, we did 33. And I thought that was a lot. 50 is nuts. That's 17 more than last time. Like, I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm a part of something that's actually working musically. And that's unreal. I hope every single one of you come to another show. I hope that you bring friends with you. I'm so grateful. I was so blown away when I saw the final run for the numbers for the night. I was like, that can't be right. But it worked out. I ran the numbers. I ran the math. I ran the money. I'm like, everything adds up to the dime. That is nuts. Thank you so much. This time through with Projekt Xero, we introduced a few newer songs into our set. Definitely different from what you heard with us back in November, but this was a very heavy Meteora set, as only 5 days before the show, Meteora turned 23 years old. So we wanted to do what we could to celebrate that as much as possible. We also played a couple of deep cut Hybrid Theory songs like By Myself and Forgotten. We threw in No More Sorrow. We threw in Breaking the Habit, Lying From You, and quite arguably the deepest cut that Linkin Park has. I mean, depending how far back you go with the band, the song "Cordy," which was never actually released on an album, we dropped a blistering version of "Cordy." We really worked on that one. We kept it fast. We kept it just thrashy. We wanted to get a wall of death going for that show. I'm sorry if we scared you guys a little bit with that, but next time we'll get them next time. But we also threw a Lost in the Echo. There were pits the entire time, which I was so happy about, because nothing makes me happier as a performer than seeing people enjoy the music the way it's intended to be enjoyed. Which anything with distorted guitars, mosh, have fun, pit it down. Everyone was singing along. Legitimately, everyone in the room was just living for that hour that we were on stage, and it felt so good. I loved every second of it. My boys loved every second of it. Just, it's such a great feeling. My boys, speaking of you guys, we killed it again. I am so proud of us. We took on 11 new songs for this show, and we absolutely crushed it. May is going to be a very busy month. We booked another local one for the end of June, so keep your eyes open for that. We don't have any. We have the details, but we don't have any of the other bands announced yet or locked in. So once we do, we're going to announce the whole thing at once. It's going to be a very fun and very affordable show, and it's going to be a throwback. That's the only hint I'll give you. Thank you to everybody who came out, though, and made that second show so incredibly memorable for us. City Sound, we will be back. Great venue. Music news. Guys, it has been a month. You think that there would be some shit to talk about, right? Well, I thought so too. Turns out we are all wrong. There is diddly fuck going on right now, so I don't have anything to tell you about. We did, however, lose two big names in the metal world over the last 2 weeks, though, and I do want to send my sincerest condolences out to the friends and family of guitarist Ross the Boss Friedman of Manowar, who just passed away at the age of 72, and the incredibly untimely and tragic passing of Harm's Way guitarist Bo Luders at the age of 39. It was not speculated. Well, it's been speculated. It's not been officially confirmed how Bo died, but a lot of what I'm seeing is people saying take care of your mental health. I just want to remind you all that it's so important taking care of your mental health. I partnered with BetterHelp a year ago to provide you guys a resource. I don't care what it does for me. I care what it does for you. So if you need help, if you need to talk to somebody, call BetterHelp. That's what that link is there for. And always, if you need to talk to someone sooner, 988, that is the suicide and crisis lifeline. Please do not wait. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get around to our special guest. I'm blown away with the fact that I have who I have on the show today. Today's guest is truly a legend, not only of the instrument, of the genre, of the legacy of guitarists. I'm quite literally at a loss for words for the fact that I had the opportunity to talk to one of my guitar heroes. Definitely among the nicest people I've ever met. You know him from Savatage. You hear him every Christmas season on the radio with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra with a multitude of songs. It's not just the big, Carol of the Bells song that everyone knows. You hear this dude's music, at least 4 or 5 different songs that are in heavy rotation every Christmas season. He's an amazing guitarist. He's an amazing human. It is my honor and my privilege to welcome to the Face of Music podcast. Please welcome Mr. Chris Caffery.
So Chris, I just wanted to start off by saying what an honor this is for me to get to talk to you for a little while. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome to the Face the Music podcast. How's everything going, man?
Well, other than the fact that I just spilled water on my studio floor, it's it's awesome. It's really funny. My individual publishing I call Face the Music because my company that I have for myself and all the business that I do is called Faces of Caffery. So the music part of it, the music publishing part, is Face the Music. It's just funny to see that.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, the irony there.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, I just was because I originally was thinking about names for my band, and then with the Rod Stewart actually having the band called Face, because I always liked that name. That's why my record was called that, just because of all the different kinds of music that I wanted to do, because I had no idea exactly what it was my voice was going to sound like, so I just sang everything.
Mm.
But
So, yeah, what's been going on then? What's been up since the winter shows? You have a lot
winter.
coming up.
Unfortunately, winter's been up since the winter shows, and a lot
Yeah.
of it, which, I liked the snow, but it just didn't stop,
Yeah.
So there was a lot of days, full days that were spent dealing with that, when you were getting, 20 inches and this and that, you gotta deal with that. So I'm getting together some stuff. I'm gonna be flying out to do a show with Doro in Houston next week. So I've been playing through her set, and I'm trying to work on exactly what guitars I want to use for the Sabotage stuff, which I think I do. I got a Zelensky guitar made, the one that looks like the it's like a kind of like a Telecaster sort of body that I had a white Charvel for, that I'd gotten with Savage's first Charvel endorsement, and Chris Oliva got the Black Predator guitar that I used in the Gutter video, and we traded those off.
Oh, cool.
So what he in the Gutter Ballet video, he's using that white, I forget what they called that, but I was using the Black Predator. We traded those off to each other, and a lot of people have made mock-ups of the Chris Oliva Gargoyle, and they put Jackson on the headstock and whatever. Guitar wasn't even a Jackson, so it's like I didn't want to like necessarily make a full-on mock-up of that, but I wanted to have a tribute guitar to him. So before last year's Sabotage shows, I spoke to my dear friend Mr. Gene Zielinski, and he put together a blue guitar like that sort of telly model that they have with with the one humbucker and then a double single at the neck. And I wanted to get the Gargoyle on it, but Dean was actually having a lot of things come at his business through the all of a sudden arrival of all that tariff stuff.
Yeah.
So his ability to deal with some individual details of my own at that point in time kind of went down, and he got the guitar for me out before the TSO tour, but it didn't have the Gargoyle on it. So I'm in the process now of trying to find the right person to get a cool Gargoyle airbrushed onto that guitar before the Sabotage shows, because I want to use it, and I want it to be like my tribute to his Gargoyle guitar, and I think it'll be cool for me to have it on the same kind of model of guitar that I'd given him, instead of just taking it and using the the soloist kind of Jackson one and putting the same Gargoyle that he had on it. So there's been just a lot going on. I mean, my mom passed away in September.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. I saw you post about that.
I took care of her for 15 years, last 10 a lot. You get home and that person's not in your house, life is really different. Been in this house for 40 years as a family. I moved back in, like I said, probably 15 years ago. In the last 10, I was taking care of her in all my off time when I wasn't on the road. So when I got off the road the last 2 months, I've been spending a lot of time going through her things, cleaning things, closets, dresses. So it's like really kind of hard to explain the emotional roller coaster I've been on. There's a lot of good things happening musically with me, but you just have that emptiness around, and you try to go sort through things, and it's different. It's real different. I watch what's going on in the rest of the world with an ocean of salt, and I just hope that human beings could work things out without blowing each other up completely. But I mean, I have my worries about that, just in the fact that I just hope it doesn't mess with my traveling and my plans.
Right.
So I can't change what people are going to do, and I can't waste my energy on it anymore. I've gotten to a point in time when I realized, like, wow, my mom at her age, where she died, was, I think, is 25 years older than me, and TSO is in its 30th year this year, and I'm going, wow, how much of your own life do you have left? So I'm not
Yeah.
going to spend my time worrying about things I can't change. I'm going to try to spend my time, making music and making art and making people happy with that, and trying to make myself happy, and live life without really focusing too much effort on the drama, because everybody else is having way too much fun doing that themselves. So
Yeah, man. So, you had actually mentioned the Zelensky guitar, and I saw you recently just made a post about that, comparing it to, or at least putting it side by side with your brand new Godzilla guitar.
well, that one Zelensky guitar in that photo is actually one of the two Tiger guitars he's made for me.
Okay.
He had made a white Tiger and a black Tiger, and the white one actually has my name on the neck with his Z Glide neck that he has. It's really cool. The necks are etched. It's hard to explain how the laser technology is that he uses is done, but this one is a blue guitar that I have I have some photos around actually with Wilbur
Oh yeah.
and a gargoyle sitting on the guitar, that you have to look on my sites and look at back into like maybe October to
Okay.
find that, because I've been trying to get the right person. There's actually a girl that lives in town that I saw her like my Instagram page with an art page, and I looked at the work she did, and it's very good. And she started penciling up something, and she's done airbrushing. So for me, it would be better for me, I think, to have it done in my own town, someplace where I could look at it. And
Yeah.
people are like, I know this guy, he's here, send it to him. And it's just like every time I send something to somebody, it never comes back, or it
Right.
comes back like way later than I expected it to. So I'm gonna probably wind up giving this girl or one of my other friends a chance to do it, that can come out this way, and or I can just bring one in town. And like I said, I want to have that done for the Sabotage stores. I don't travel with a lot with that, and I say a lot, it's like it's only six guitars, so I
Yeah.
want that to be one of the six. So one of the guitars that I had last year out on those shows will have to be benched, and I'm still trying to figure out which one it is. It's probably going to be one of the Rhodes guitars, but I haven't figured out exactly which guitar I'm going to bench just yet. It's kind of difficult. I got so
Yeah.
many, great ones that I took. The six I took last year were so good. It was four Rhodes and a Kelly and this one DBZ, what the heck, that Bird of Prey guitar that's really neat looking.
Yeah.
It's like I'd never even used that one before live. It's the same model as the Beethoven's guitar that I had, and I
Okay.
forgot that they'd given me that one to try while I was waiting for the Beethoven guitar to be done. So I tried it at home before the shows, and then it sat in the case, and I was like, oh, wait a second. So I dug that out for the Sabotage shows and had new pickups put in, because it had some really different powered EMGs in it that were completely different than the ones that I usually use, and I didn't want anything that was gonna need to have a different setting in gain or distortion. So I had the guitar redone, and it's a lot of fun. It's
Yeah.
it's cool. It's a pretty cool looking guitar.
With your live rig, have you gone digital yet, or are you still playing real amps, real cabs?
No, I've been digital for over 20 years.
Oh
Ever
yeah.
since TSO started playing, and the very first shows we did, we were using like PV Classic 50s with two
Oh wow.
12-inch speakers as our stage amps. And like, I think it was the third tour, they wanted to get amps off the stage for the mix.
Okay.
So they had started us on using pods, and they were okay, but I didn't really necessarily love the pod. I thought it was decent. I have some
Hmm.
units in my rig at home. I'm able to use it. when then we were trying to do some stuff with ISO cabs, and I just don't love the way they sound. I think they sound honky. If you listen to them, the mid tone is like, oh, it's just distinctly able to tell it's in an isolation cabinet.
Hmm.
And I went to see Queensryche one night by me, and I was listening to Michael Wilton's guitar sound, and I was like, this sounds freaking awesome. And I asked him, I'm like, what are you using? Your rhythm sound was great. He's like, dude, you've no idea. I'm using a Digitech 1101. And I'm like, really? He's like, dude, I'll hook you up. I'll hook you up. So he hooked me up with Digitech, and they sent me one, and I've been using it since. He's left and went to Kemper, but the Kemper for me is just too complicated.
Yeah.
It's I don't want 90 different versions of a Marshall 900.
Right.
I want one version of the Marshall 900, an easy way to get to the volume and tone.
Hmm.
And if you have speakers, simulators, let me get to that easily, and find my Marshall cabinet and a 57 mic, and I'll make exactly the way I like an amp to sound in 5 seconds without having to sit there and figure it out. And it's
Right.
and it's just it's the very first Kempers were a lot easier to use. There were just a few dials on a head, and I really enjoyed that. And I was actually hoping that that's where the future of that was going to go, but it got so crazy different that I sat with one and I got some good sounds, but my head was ready to explode when I was done. I
Yeah.
like the Fender Tone Pro a lot because it's kind of like the old person's version of that. When I say that, it means like, when I started playing video games, it was Pac-Man.
Right.
It wasn't as crazy detailed and involved, and you didn't have to go through as many things to win the game. It's like the Tone Pro, and you get to the head, you hit the head, and the head shows up, and the knobs are there. You want a pedal, you pick a pedal, and the pedal shows up. And it's just like, for me, it's like, you know, it's the old person's digital guitar rig. It's a lot of fun. That's what I'm actually going to be flying to the Texas with, because I like carrying that. It goes right in my bag on the plane,
Yeah.
and it's the pedal, 4 pedal, and the rig in one. So I just go out the XLR. If there's a nice amp or a 900 there, I'll go into the return and use that amp as a slave, and I'll have the house get an XLR out, and I'll have them mic me once to use that too, and that's a really good combo as well. I mean, I don't mind marrying the digital and the real amp world, and I find that's the best way to do it for my hearing, because it's been 40 years of being on the road, and every single day I hear differently.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, instead of me trusting myself, I trust the digital sound because I know what it is. So
Right.
when I turn that thing on, if it sounds a little bit different to me today than it did yesterday, I know it sounds the same. But if you're getting a Marshall, or you have a live microphone, or you have a cable that may be a little wonky or something like that, you don't know when you hear something if it's that you're hearing that's changing.
Right.
Is your battery dying down in a something, or whatever it is that you're using, or this, that, and the other thing, is a tube dying. So it's like, I trust the digital world that way, just because I don't trust myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, because every time I've seen TSO play, your tone is outstanding. So like I was never able to really tell if it was real cabs versus digital. It sounds
Well,
almost too good to be.
the 1101 has a very, very, very good amp simulator, the speaker simulator, and
Mm,
you have to be in the XLR. If you go out the direct quarter inch, and that doesn't sound the same. If you go out the XLR, it gets to the amp simulators, and it just sounds like you hear the cabinet,
yeah.
and it's a great sound. And I always use, out of the front, out of my guitar, the first thing that gets hit is a 9-volt distortion pedal of some form.
Hmm.
So I make sure the guitar gets a bit of the old world. I've been using a lot of times recently I use Vox stuff. I used to use the Vox valve tone, but they changed the valve tone, and every time somebody changes something with new electronics, they never sound the same.
Yeah.
But they have there's some really good Vox things. I have a red and a gold pedal, the copper tone. I think it's called copper tone or copper something or other, Vox, and those pedals are very good, and they sound just. This is what I want when I put one on there. I don't want the amp tones to change at all.
Hmm.
I want to be able to turn up and down the gain and maybe control the volume a little bit without pissing off the sound man if I add that thing on. And the Vox things also add a brightness, which is very useful in the clean sounds because a lot of these sounds in the digital clean world I don't love.
Right.
So putting that on into the cleans gives it a kind of a brightness like you're just playing a Strat through a Fender Twin. You can get that
Hmm.
brightness out of it. A lot of the other stuff sounds really muted, and then you try to like add distortion in through the digital units, and it's not the same. But having these, it's like I have control of that too. I can turn that on and off to get to the super clean
Hmm.
if I really need to. But I found that when I was recording at home too, it just brightens things up a lot, and I have to tap dance around that stuff. Like when I'm playing the shows with Doro and I'm using that Tone Pro, everything's pretty bright coming out of that. So I can't use my metal picks like I do with Sabotage.
Oh,
I
you use
use,
metal picks?
yeah,
I didn't
I
know
went
that.
back to using metal. And that's what I always did in the past. And I got OHM picks in I think it's Finland. They're the guys overseas. They make these picks for me, and they're so cool because they cut a Sabotage S and they'll cut a C, and it's inside, so when you hold it, it doesn't slip off, and
Oh,
it's got
cool.
those points, and it's really good. And I used last year on the Sabotage European tour, I'd lost a bunch of the ones I had. I had one left, and I managed to use one pick the whole entire tour, which
Jesus.
is back to the way it used to be. Hopeful
For
that you've got that one pick that it's funny. And I have the pointed the picks with the really cool point, like the Dunlop picks with the really sharp point in it that
yeah.
are extra heavy that I can use if I happen to lose my metal ones and I use them at home, and I'll be using that with the Doro stuff. But when I use that metal pick and I'm using that Tone Pro, it's so bright. Like I barely used it on the TSO tour just because of that. It just brightens up everything so much. But when you're playing Sabotage, for some reason, it just marries that,
Hmm.
so it's never too bright. It always, you're looking for that sound with that distinct brightness that came out of Chris Oliva's tone. And that's what really can only come alive, I think, with the metal pick. I can emulate it without it, but you really get it with it.
So what's the response on a metal pick? Like, is it a smoother playing feel? Or I never tried to use one
You
before.
have to get used to it. It's once you're used to playing it, it's relatively easy to use. When you're not, it's kind of hard to work into feeling completely natural because of
Hmm.
how hard it is. But the speed is completely different. What
Okay.
you're how fast you're able to pick with that point is totally different than what it would be with the plastics. And the metal, when you're picking that fast, rolls off the metal.
Right.
If you're using steel strings or whatever, it's rolling off of it. The plastic does too, but there's a speed advantage in the metal that
Hmm.
when it hits it, it just is able to move faster. And then, like I said, when you go to hit those distinct Sabotage songs and sounds, you hear it come out with it. It just makes it happen. There's a brightness that comes out of the things like that, especially when you get into things like some of the stuff that was on like Degrees of Sanity and some of the stuff on streets when, or even gutter, you could just really hear that the tone come alive
Hmm.
when that metal pick's hitting that strings compared to not. It comes out of it differently.
I never would have known that. I never knew you guys, well, at least you anyway. I never knew you played metal picks. That's so interesting to hear
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I never did until the Dead Winter Dead Sabotage tour. I started using them, and then Wake, and then by the Poets Amendments, or pretty much exclusively for my main pick live on stage with Sabotage was always a metal pick.
So with Sabotage, you've I mean, I've noticed just by seeing TSO so many times, you've had Jeff Plate with you basically your entire run. Um, what does that friendship and partnership mean to you to like have him on quite literally this entire journey with you?
Um, it's really awesome. It becomes more like family in that situation, and you've been through so much together that I think you understand drama a little bit better when you have somebody that's been that close to you. And we've
Hmm.
been through so many things, whether it's been good or bad.
Yeah,
And we've lost a lot of friends, and we both of me and Jeff have lost family members. His father had passed, and his sister got killed in a car accident, and
oh God.
we had lost Paul, and we lost so many members of our band, and in between Sabotage and TSO, it's pretty crazy. So I think it's just there's a comfort zone, when you have somebody around like that, and I guess you go through things together, and we'll get on the phone, and if something good is happening, we're able to bounce off each other on it. If something bad has happened, is not. And Jeff he's a good ear. He lets you know when you're being lazy as far as your timing and stuff like that, and he keeps you. He listens to every show and records every one, and which is good because we guitar players, we always think we're perfect. So, but it's good to have that there, and yeah, he's a great rock and great metal drummer, and just is always very solid behind me. And I never really think about it, which
Mhm.
is important too.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in a good place with the drummer if you don't have to worry about what the drummer is doing.
Yeah, exactly.
How's the reception been for the return of Sabotage?
It's been amazing, and I think it's better than I could have hoped for, which I was just hoping for it to be really good.
Hmm.
That people would be happy we were back and they would accept it, and they would want to see more. It's been like over the top great, which is really cool. People have
That's
been so
awesome.
excited, and there's been so many new fans that never had a chance to see us before,
Hmm.
and some of the old ones that are arriving to the shows with like their children that be anywhere from 14 to, for how long it's been since we played, in their 20s, where the kid never had a chance to see Sabotage. So, we're meeting their families as they bring them to the shows. And I think the fact that we really busted our butts to make sure that band was very tight and the music was played very well, and we were all in shape and went up on stage and did the best we could do. The fans that used to go see us all the time, that would brag to their friends that didn't know of Sabotage how we were live. You got to see this band live. You got to see this band live. I think we lived up to their memories to them, when they were
Yeah.
very happy. So when they brought their friends out and their family and this and that, they were like, see. So it's like we didn't let anybody down, and I think that includes ourselves. It's like we went up there, and I just wanted to do the best I possibly could do. I mean, I sat and really kind of nickel and dimed a little bit of the Chris solos more than I did in the past, because in the past I was just kind of playing them and into my head, making sure I remembered them as close as possible. But
Hmm.
this last time I was going through and really like picking apart specific licks and even some of the songs I'd never played before. I think it was just, either the amount of time that it's been since I first played a Sabotage song till then. I would send tapes of me playing this stuff to Zach and even to people like Wackles, and they were just like, it sounds exactly the same. And I'm like, yeah. And I said, I never played that song before. So there'll be Sabotage songs I never played that I'll play for the first time, and I'm playing the lead, or songs that I played 20 years ago, I'm playing the lead completely different.
Hmm.
So it's like, and the different happens to be really correct. So it's one of these things where I don't know if it's just me getting older and getting better, or if there's a little bit of guidance that comes around every once in a while. I think it's a little of both.
Yeah, man, it could definitely be both. But do you think we'll ever see Sabotage in the States again?
Yeah, I think we will. I think right now everybody just needs to be happy that we're back. It's
Yeah.
like I try to tell it to the States fans. I'm like, do you understand that it was the Europeans and South Americans that dug this out of the woodwork?
Oh
Now that
yeah.
you've seen that we're playing all these other places, don't get upset when they're not playing with you. If you would have had the same demand out of the gate, or in the past, the first shows may have been the United States. They got that benefit. So it's like now we're just trying to make it be the right thing. We don't want to come over here and do anything less as far as the production and how we're getting on that stage and the situations. We don't want to get into a compromise situation where it's gonna be like, I saw him, it was okay. It's like, we want to really make sure that we get something together that's going to work. We've been going over, mulling through a few different ideas and things that happens, and I know some festivals have asked us to come and play, and some of them headline, and we're working it all out. It's not like it's not going to happen. I just don't
Mhm.
know exactly when or how, and I'm always the last to know. So somewhere there's going to be somebody out there that'll know before me. Hey, I hear you guys are playing. I'll be like, we are. It's always like that. It was like that last year when we were playing. Oh my God, it's great to know you guys are playing back at Rockwave. I'm like, we are. It's like the people in Greece knew before me, and the people in the United States will know where we're playing in the USA before me. It's just going to happen that way. I want to play everywhere we can. And like I said, hopefully none of our travel plans get messed up through the way, the ways of the world. But I keep my finger crossed and hope for the best.
Yeah, my buddy Tyler a few years ago joined the band Prong. He's their drummer now.
Okay.
So last year was his first taste of European festivals. He had never gone to Europe before, so he actually hit like I think Wacken and a couple of the other big ones last year. And he texted me, he's like, "Dude, holy shit, there's nothing like a European festival. People over here appreciate metal on a different wavelength than America does." And
Yeah, I love playing in America, but I think a lot of times we have so many things going on in this country that people, the for some people the music becomes just a part of everything else.
yeah.
With a lot of these European and South American fans, I know that especially some of the countries that are less, busy economically, I think the music is such a bigger percentage of a part of these fans' lives that when you go to see them live, you're filling maybe 10 holes that music would fill in America with just, that are filled around us by 900 things. The music
Right.
is just one of 10 in the things that people do on the weekend.
Mhm.
These kids are doing just that. It's their one release. And I think when you play for these audiences, you feel that live. And I think it's undeniable. You know, Not that there's not great audiences in the United States, there are, and there always has been. But you'll see even with that, some of the places you get to, some of the more rural places where, the kids will crawl out of the woodwork because they're not in a big city and there's not a big sports team and there's not a big arena around it. When we used to play some of the, the club venues with Sabotage or some of the theaters, you would get out there into some of these places and these crowds were just like bananas. They were
Yeah.
great. And it's just you feel that. So it's not that, but the European festival scene is definitely something that's has to be seen to be able to describe exactly. It's kind of like a TSO show. You could talk about it, but unless you see it, you don't really know. But I
Yeah.
mean, there's lots of great stuff, like I said, in South America too. And I know there's a lot of great festivals coming around in America too. That one that I'm playing with Doro in Houston, the Hell's Heroes one, that reminds me a lot of a European festival. It's not a ton of people, but the crowds are very, very, very responsive. It's right on the border of Texas and Mexico down there, so you'll get
Oh,
kids from
cool.
South America and Mexico coming up into Houston, and it just felt that way, the way the setup was and the backstage and the catering and the whole feeling of being at that festival just felt like like a smaller European festival. Like it was just a lot of fun, and that's I'm excited to go back there this year. Hopefully the weather will be a little bit better. Doro's really funny because she comes out of Germany, and like last year or the last time I played with her, I think it was 2024 here, and we went to Hell's Heroes and then we went to M3, and both of those shows were cold and rainy outside. I'm like, people were like, we've never seen it like this. I'm like, yeah, well, Doro comes over from Germany and she brings that weather. Then we went up to the Milwaukee one up there,
Hmm.
the Milwaukee Metal Fest, and we were playing, and that's indoors in that old Eagles ballroom place, I think it was called, and it's on different floors, and the rooms are a couple thousand people a piece, and it's a smaller festival, but it's a lot of fun. That one, everybody's crammed inside this building, but that one, the indoor show up in Milwaukee in the beginning of May, it was like 90 outside and sunny. So like Duro gets to the outdoor show in Houston and it was like 50 and raining. And then the indoor show in Milwaukee, it was 90 and sunny outside. I'm like, it's just the way it is. So
Yeah, I've been to more than my fair share of M3 festivals, and it's either 40 and raining or hotter than hell outside. There's no in between.
yeah, we were pretty hot last summer with these ones we saw in Europe. There was like Hellfest was crazy hot in
Yeah.
France then. The days were reaching 100, and then a lot of the places, even in the backstage areas, like the catering and stuff like that, there wasn't a lot of very strong air conditioning, and some of the press rooms we were going into, it was hotter being out in the 100-degree weather out, 95, 100-degree weather outside than it was in some of these buildings to do the interviews. It was pretty warm last summer, and a lot of the shows we did out there. I don't remember what South America was like. I think it was just kind of pretty normal out there when we were in Brazil and Argentina were the two places that we played that were outdoors. I just know that for some reason, and I was laughing with Johnny about this, every time we played, it seemed that the sun had to be going down right in front of us and shining right in our faces. It was like that in Buenos Aires. It was like that at, I think it was Hellfest, and I think it was like that at a couple of the other ones where the sun was just happened to be like the time of day we went on. And some of the places you go, it's like it gets dark even later. So even if you're headlining, you were not gonna get past it. But the sun was right in our face. I think it was like that in Spain when we played down in Spain right before Slipknot. I think the sun was right in our face. It just happened like almost every show we did. They would go live as soon as the sun was down and it was dark,
Of
and then they
course.
played, and I was like, man,
That's definitely by design.
yeah.
But you actually touched on something that I was gonna bring up. Um, a lot of Sabotage songs eventually became TSO songs, but how does it feel getting to play all of these songs, not just for the diehard Sabotage fans, but every year younger and younger generations of metalheads that are getting exposed to this music at TSO shows?
Well, it was great music, so for me, it was always made me happy to be on those stages playing that stuff and knowing that, at least somebody was hearing it, and
Hmm.
when we would play songs like The Mountain, and you were doing things like Temptation Revolution, where we're just playing something in front of those crowds. You were like, wow, this is great that, this music to me is where it should have always been. To Sabotage, I think that if some of the cards lined up exactly and Chris has not passed, and I think John probably would have headed back into the band with me while Chris was alive, and I think a lot of these things would have lined up, and who knows where things would have went, exactly with that. And I just think Sabotage down the road, you know, may have had a different ending. You just never really know what would have happened with everything with that. And with TSO, Paul was able to turn the flame over to a lot of people that would have never heard that music, and it was always a great feeling to do that. I think now when we get back to playing that stuff in front of, you know, some of these crowds are 60, 70, 80,000 people, so it's fun to be like, this back, like I said, this music is where it belonged.
Yeah,
And that's kind of how I felt with it with TSO. It was like that music belonged in front of big audience music. It was arena rock, It's like,
absolutely.
and I think it was at home with TSO, and now it's definitely back at home in the festivals and shows that we're doing now.
So tell me about your relationship with the late and truly great Paul O'Neill. You were very young when you started working together, correct?
Yeah, I gave my first Paul and I started working together. I was 17, just turning 18. And I'd given my first demo tape to Alan Fryer from Heaven, and I wound up getting the gig playing guitar in that band. And my first paycheck, professional paycheck, was written out of Lieber Krebs Management, which is a really big management company that was David Krebs and Steve Lieber, and they were managing Aerosmith, AC/DC, Ted Nugent, the Scorpions, Def Leppard. I think they were the biggest rock and roll management company I think ever, and a lot of the names in big management companies now worked for them and branched off into their own management. And Paul was a young one in that company, and Heaven was one of the first bands he was producing and recording with, and I got into that at just turning 18, and we recorded some songs. My paycheck was like for going in the studio and doing some demos with that. And actually, one of the songs we recorded is a song called Boys Night Out, which Alan Fryer actually did record and do a video with Heaven, and that music is all mine, and that song that I'd written, I think, when I was either 17 or just turned 18, so it's pretty cool. And then Paul had spoken to me when the Heaven thing stopped seeming like it was going to continue. He's like, I'm starting to work with this band Sabotage for Atlantic, and I think the band needs a second guitar player for live, and I think you would be perfect at it. And an emotional roller coaster ride getting that off the ground, because Sabotage didn't think they needed a second guitar player. Maybe they
Hmm.
didn't, but Paul wanted to hear the sound get bigger live, and I was kind of like, being suggested to the band, and then I learned all their music and was going to be going on the road for them opening for Dio and Megadeth,
Damn,
and
dude.
like 2 weeks before tour, management calls me up, Sabotage management, and goes, the Sabotage guys took another guitar player in Florida for this. And I said, no, they didn't. I said, I've been playing this music for 6 months or 4 months, whatever it was, and I know all their songs, and I just really think that there's something about this band that I'm supposed to be in it. And I said to the manager, I said, look, let me fly myself to Florida and play with these guys. And if they think that guy they had was better, I'll leave and go home and I'll eat the plane ticket. If not, if I go down there and it was the best thing they've ever heard, let me stay on the tour.
Hmm.
And the band agreed. All right, the band agreed to it. Oh, I get down there and it was just funny. There wasn't even anybody to pick me up at the airport. They finally you didn't have cell phones there, so I finally called her like, take a taxi. So I took a taxi like an hour away from the airport to where they had a rehearsal place and some warehouse, like a storage warehouse thing. And they had met me before in the studio. I came in to meet them when they were recording Mountain King, and they're like, "What do you want to play?" I said, "Well, I know all your songs. You tell me." So they what was I think it was it Twisted Little Sister or one of the other songs off of the first records, and 24 hours ago, and they stopped playing. Oh, I think it was The Whip, might have been the first song we played. But I knew all the songs. And then we were playing and they just looked at each other and something was going on. It was like when I played with Chris, it sounded like Chris in stereo. It just
Mhm.
happened. Our rhythm sounds and styles were exactly the same because, we might have been groomed on different lead players, and he might have been a level above me in lead playing, but we played exactly alike rhythm as a rhythm guitar player, and you can hear that on the Ghost in the Ruins record when I did my guitars for that album. You hear that, and they left the room, came back in, and they're like, "We want you to do this gig," and that was a situation that they didn't want.
Hmm.
And they had a guitar player that they were going to let play some keyboards, but they really didn't have they weren't going to have him playing guitar.
Yeah.
They were going to have him go on the side of the stage and play the keyboards in Dungeons and Strange Wings and do some backups and humor everybody and just make sure management thought there was somebody there that was giving Paul what he wanted. There
Mhm.
was really no plan at all to have that kid doing much of anything. And I changed that. We went on the road and it was still kind of like a little bit of a battle between what Chris really knew was better and what Chris was experienced as far as, getting his reputation as a guitarist. So he wanted to be the only guitarist and not the only guitarist at the same time. And I was
Mhm.
like the little puppet in the middle dealing with it. And, John would always tell me, he's like, I'm going to get you in this band. I'm going to get you in this band. And they did. And it was just Paul was a visionary. He took that band and he started bringing in the rock theater element with Streets, and you watch that go into TSO, and you watch that explode to a top 10 ticket selling band the last 40 years in the world, not just the United States. TSO
Yeah.
has sold top 10 amount of tickets in the entire world the last 40 years. So no matter what, Paul had accomplished a heck of a lot more than anybody would have ever imagined. It was for us, it was like we were living it, so it was surreal just to watch it happen as it was happening when you went from level A to B to C, and you just kept getting bigger. And for Paul, he just always knew.
Mhm.
And TSO's first record wasn't even out, and he was telling me when TSO headlines arenas, it's like we hadn't even played a show yet. We haven't released a record yet. The record was not out. And he's like telling me what's going to happen when TSO headline arenas. And that's, to me, says it all.
Did it happen?
Oh, yeah. We headlined arenas. And
Well, I
it
mean,
started
like,
within the third tour. We were TSO tour number 3. We had the very first one was only 7 shows. Then it split east and west. That was theaters, and then the third year, Wilkes-Barre and Hershey, Pennsylvania had an arena. And
but
then
every
after that, the fourth year was half arenas, and the fifth year was all arenas. And then the sixth year it was bigger arenas and all arenas, and then by the 10th year it was all arenas and matinees, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger.
but everything Paul said came true.
Oh yeah, and he
That's
would sit
awesome.
there and go, now when TSO plays stadiums, and it was kind of like, well, you can't play a stadium in a lot of these places in the wintertime, but when you looked at it on paper, if we were doing 2 shows in Cleveland and 2 shows in Dallas, and those 2 shows amount together to over 50,000 people, technically TSO was playing a stadium that day.
Hmm.
So it was just kind of that level got reached.
I always loved that you incorporated a lot of classical music into metal. You go see Sabotage or you see TSO, and you hear the guitars, you see the lasers, you feel the intensity of the pyro and the music, but also you're hearing Beethoven and Mozart, Bach, Grieg, Tchaikovsky, and just the list keeps going on and on. When Paul started incorporating all this stuff together, was the original goal just to pay tribute to the famous composers, or was it just adding another element on top by adding lyrics?
I mean, there's a couple different reasons. What the classical era was doing was what Paul wanted to do back then. The theater element of those classical musicians
Hmm.
and what had happened at that time. And then also, as Paul would always say, those guys were the rock and roll stars of their time.
Yeah.
And I think that Paul just wanted to continue the glory of what happened with that music. And, you got to think about this. In the 80s, Led Zeppelin was borderline reaching classic rock. It was like
Yeah.
10 years old and just getting that title. Sabbath wasn't classic rock. Police wasn't classic rock. Fucking, excuse me,
Oh,
for
you're
the
good.
swear. Like, but Metallica was just starting. So when I have a classic rock station I keep on all day long because my dog likes to listen to music, and I keep it low when I'm just walking around the house. And Metallica's on that station. The
Yeah.
Judas Priest is on that station. You'll hear even like Warrant on that station, and you don't really hear Pantera on it because Pantera is too metal for the classic rock stations a lot of times. But I think Paul was just finding something that had the power that needed to be that he thought could be represented correctly. And Paul always liked the ideas of doing justice to somebody else's music well.
Hmm.
I think it was something that he got out of he had the idea to put Little Drummer Boy out with Joan, and his idea with that is if we get this rock and roll singer on the normal radio for Christmas, then when we go to release rock and roll, the rock stations are, those stations are going to play it, and the rock stations are going to get to more people, and it worked. So he had that vision in his head with 1224. He's like, it wasn't lyrics, but he also wanted to do TSO, which wasn't about any individual singer. It was about multiple singers to be able to rest a singer to sing a song or two a night so you can tour more. And it was about putting the stories out and having voices match the different characters. And, he definitely thought that the instrumental had the chance of getting as much radio play than a song with lyrics, which to me was the amazing vision more than anything, was the fact that he saw into the fact that that song could go to the same level as a song that had the lyrics in it. And being somebody who was a storyteller and a lyric and a story writer, it was funny to see that he knew that that channel was going to be ultimately the best way to bring his stories and that music to the other level. And I think a lot of that came too with the fact that Paul, he got involved working with like Jesus Christ Superstar and Hair when he was younger, and he was in New York City, and he was watching Broadway, and he watched Phantom, and he watched Jekyll and Hyde, and the power of that stuff in the theaters. And it was a heavy metal element to a lot of sides of those shows. So
Mhm.
he wanted to bring the hard rock and into the theater and make that rock theater instead of Broadway. And that was his other vision with that. I mean, I by now I'm pretty sure that Streets would have been, on Broadway if he was still alive. It was a vision of him to get that. And he was going to call it Gutter Ballet and place that on Broadway under that name. And he, like I said, he was just he was a visionary. A lot of people have the ideas, but it takes somebody special to make them happen. Not only have the ones that can happen, but to make them happen. It's not an easy business at all.
Mhm.
Never has been, never will be. And he went over a lot of obstacles and made something pretty cool happen.
Yeah, I would say so. And speaking of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra singers, you guys have just had a masterclass of singers come through. Um, I was shocked the first time I heard Russell Allen sing for you guys. I'm a big Symphony X fan and Adrenaline Mob fan, and to hear him come on board with TSO was like, oh my God, that's incredible. He fits so well, and
Yeah, he was one of my people that I said to them, you should take a listen to Russell, because I went to see him live, and talking back to Ray, to Paul. Paul worked with Ray Gillen, and Russell to me was one of the few people I heard that had that like Ray Gillen kind of tone and performance live when I went to see Symphony X. It's just
Mhm.
something reminded me of Ray with Russell, and I mentioned that to TSO when he eventually got the gig, and him and David Z was one of the people that I brought to Paul when he was looking for a bass player. And it was so funny because Paul was always into the long hair, because he was like, in the back of the arena, you can't see faces, you see the hair. He just liked rock and roll stars looking like that. That was a vision Paul had. And David, when I first met him, he had really long curly hair. He kind of looked like Hal, the bass player from King Diamond, but like younger and skinnier. Well, actually, I don't know if he was even skinnier at that point. It was because Hal was pretty skinny. But so David goes to the auditions for TSO East and West, because Johnny was going to the West band, and we needed somebody from the East. So I was like, this kid, his band played at the Savacon. It was a Sabotage convention, and his cover band played there, and I watched him play, and I took his number, and I was like, I don't know if it's Dr. Butcher or something, but I'm going to use you for something someday. I thought I was blown away by him. He shows up to SIR rehearsal studios in New York City to do his audition, and his hair was gone. And he looked like, I said, you look like Skippy from Family Ties. And that's where his nickname Skippy had come in, because he had this crazy cool, really long Viking looking dark long hair, and then he went to looking like a Backstreet Boy. And he was so talented and such a good bassist and such a good person to be around
Mhm.
that he sold himself to Paul immediately, and Paul saw into him what he was in that way. But we kept the name Skippy stuck around. So
Yeah, my wife, she loves Georgia Napolitano. She's a big fan. Every time she gets to hear her sing, she just lights up. And it's it's one of many singers that you guys have had that it's just like you really find the best of the best in the world, and it's such a
yeah, and I love the
treat.
fact that I watched a lot of them grow, not only as people as they get, we all get older, and we all kind of change, and we become who we are as personalities and stuff like that. But I watch a lot of their voices will grow, and they'll determine their characters and become who they are. Georgia, she's really she's blossomed a lot in a lot of ways as far as the vocals have gone, and she's gotten some really good opportunities to go out and sing, and it's the singer world is different. It's a different character. They
Yeah.
have a different mindset and different set of egos that are in them, and it's a lot of that confidence gets built in how you feel people think of you as a vocalist. And when you're around 10 singers, that's a constant, you know who's,
Yeah.
the alpha male female thing. It's like it's a lot, but that's a good thing because it makes them perform and sing at their best. And a lot of times they do it because they want to make their friends, these singers are their family and their best friends, so they want to make them enjoy watching them. It's not about, they want to get out and get all the attention. They want to leave the stage and go, oh my God, you did great. It's like it helps them to have that bouncing back and forth with that. It's just one of these things. And it's fun to have all those voices there. When we started playing the first 10 years of TSO, I had a microphone in front of me. I was doing background vocals all the time till it went to 10 people. It wasn't 10 from the start. It was usually just like five. There'd be a couple male singers and, three female singers, and we'd sing along, and they do an awesome job. And Derek and Al, they set up these harmonies for them and work out these vocal parts, and I have it in my ears. I hear everything they do every day, and there's some freaking awesome voices there.
So I want to go all the way back to your beginning. Um, what is it that got you started playing music? Who were some of your earliest influences that made you want to play guitar?
Uh, the Beatles, like a lot of people will say, obviously that, I was a little kid. My mom had bought me Beatles records for Christmas or my birthday, and I had a tiny little record player. I always liked the heavier music when it came, like Revolution and things
Hmm.
like that. I was like a fan of that, and I was obsessed with the look of an electric guitar. I thought it was cool. I thought race cars were cool. I thought motorcycles were cool, but I just thought that for me there was something cooler about an electric guitar. So
Hmm.
I would go to the discount stores and I would see these guitars up on the wall, and they weren't Gibsons in this place, but I was just like, wow, it was just cool. And then I got um my neighbors knew I was a Beatle fan. They bought me the Wings Over America live record for Christmas. And I forget exactly what year that came out, but it was early 70s. And there's just something about that really grabbed me all the way around. That was turning, it was almost a metal band. And at that point in time, you didn't have MTV or anything. So I mean, even though there was a Sabbath or whatever else was coming out, I didn't know.
Hmm.
So when I got that, I heard Rock Show and Venus and Mars and all the other stuff on that album, Live and Let Die, and it was like, I think that record is why I'm who I am as a musician. All those different flavors you hear on that Wings Over America record basically sums up why I became who I am. It was that, and then I went into school. I was either kindergarten or first grade. I think it might have been first grade. I had show and tell. I sang Help. I was 6 years old at that time, so I was pretty sure what I wanted to do. I'm lucky that I did what I did because I didn't have a backup plan, and I was a very smart student. 156 IQ. I was first in my class. I graduated a year early. I was in high school classes in eighth grade, but I had no desire to find X.
Yeah.
It came before Y and Z, and I knew that right away. I didn't want to sit there and spend a half hour doing an algebra problem or calculus or this and that and the other thing. I wanted to be a rock and roll musician. I wanted to do that, and I wound up being lucky enough to make it happen. And my parents wound up letting me do it, although I think they probably wanted me, deep down to go to school and do computers, and I probably would have been building my own SpaceX at this time if I did, but it's like I was right at the beginning of everything. So I think about that and I'm like, wow, if I would have used my brain and entered computers then, I don't want to think about it. So it's just like I probably wouldn't, really be thinking about, life in the same way, but who knows? But I just enjoy what I do. I'm blessed to do what I do. And that was kind of it. I just started playing. I didn't really get into, my family didn't have a lot of money. So in the school bands, and at least the ones I was in, my brother played drums. And then it was the cheapest thing you do because you only had to buy the sticks and the pad. And I tried doing the wind instruments. I couldn't do it. I could not sit there and blow on a freaking clarinet or a saxophone. I couldn't do it. I was like, this is just not me. I'm not going to sit here and blow this tuba. I'm sorry. This trombone is not cool enough for me to do. It just wasn't. So I tried the drum thing. I liked it, but I was like, man, I like the drums, but I want to play music.
Yeah.
So I always say that to drummers and they get like, huh? I'm like, well, so I went to guitar and I just started playing and never really looked back. And I did want to sing. I think I enjoy singing as much, if not more, sometimes than I do guitar playing. People don't really realize that, but when my cover bands were playing with my brother, who was a drummer, and my friends, there was Halford, there was Coverdale, there was Dickinson, there was Steve Perry, there was Lou Gramm, there was Steve Walsh, and everybody wanted that voice. So
Hmm.
when you were 16, 17 years old, I didn't have that voice. At least I didn't have it naturally. I
Right.
could have probably learned for it, but you weren't given that opportunity. I wasn't able to sing Queen of the Reich. It's like, but that's what people wanted. So I would sit in my basement and when nobody was home, I would turn up this PA we had and I would play foreigner records and sing along and it's really what I wanted to do, but I wasn't in that situation. I think that I probably would have been a pretty successful vocalist in the Motley Crue Warrant time if I just came out singing.
Yeah.
I think that I would have had a pretty good success with that, but I wasn't what I wanted to do. I mean, I wasn't in that position playing guitar. And then once you play guitar and you sing, people only take you seriously as a guitar player.
Yeah.
You look at somebody like Richie Kotzen, who's one of the greatest singers on the planet, and people
Hmm.
don't take his singing seriously. And it's like, guy's better than 99% of the singers out there, and people don't rate him as a vocalist. It's like that guy will dust most of the people that sing in the bands you love easily. And for me, for after that, I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna sing for fun. I'm gonna make my own music, do my own records, and I'm gonna have fun with it, and that's gonna be it. And I'm gonna create music. The voice is gonna be, an extra box of colors in my crayons, and that's how
Hmm.
I considered it with my music. I'm gonna go and people go, ooh, I'd love to hear somebody else sing this music. I'm like, I wouldn't. I didn't do it for somebody else to sing. I did my solo music for me to sing. Whether you like me singing it or not, I could care less. It's why I did it. If I wanted it to be a band, I would have put a band together and got a different singer. I wanted to make music on my own. Then if you don't like it, there's a whole lot of other records you can listen to. So it's like that's how I thought about it. It's where things like pisses me off came from and stuff like that. I just like the emotions came out in my music and I enjoyed it, and I have fun with it. I mean, I got to do a little piece of one of the Aliva Sabotage songs last year during the tour to sing, and people were really happy to hear it. It's just like, yeah, I can sing. I always do background vocals, and it's fun and something I'd love to do more of, and you'll see what happens in the future. But it's just it's always there. I sit there and work all the time on guitar stuff, and I'll at the end of the night, I'll put on a recording and I'll sing, songs like a Carrie from Europe or even that song Toy Soldiers from that what was her name, Martika or something. It was like one of the greatest songs ever. It's just like I'll
Hmm.
sing these songs and it's just I like singing. To me it's fun. I like, I was a very, very, very good karaoke singer.
Now, a while back, I remember seeing you interview Ace Frehley for Fuse in a Muse, oh sorry, in a metal head-to-head talk. Was that your first time ever meeting Ace when you got to sit
Oh
down with
no,
him?
no, no. I've known Ace. I knew him when I met him when I was. That was. I think it was after the. It was either after or before the Mountain King tour.
Oh wow.
I My mom was an oral surgeon's assistant, and she came home one day with this business card that said Ace on it with the phone number written. I still have it signed, and it she got an autograph. It said to Charlene, my favorite nurse, Ace Frehley. She went in there and she saw the Ace ring on his hand. She's like, I know who you are. And it was Ace. And she said, well, my son, because when I got Kiss Alive, I think I was probably 1975. I bought it when it came out. I bought that in Boston, the first record, the same day. So I might have been like 8. That changed my life forever. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I was like, that's what I want to do. There's the music I want. There's that heavy sound I couldn't find in the Beatles.
Hmm.
And I wanted to be Ace Frehley. And my mom told him that I just gotten, was working with the signed band. I think it was Heaven at that time. It might have been I was 18, I think. And he gave my mom his phone number. And I called him up. There was no cell phones back then. He answered the phone. Hello? It was freaking Ace Frehley. And I went to his rehearsals and hung out and got laminates and became a friend of his and watched his first Frehley's Comet tour, a few shows from the beginning. And I hadn't seen him for a few years. I got in Sabotage and was moving all different places. And then he got back into Kiss. And I remember being in Tampa watching him up on the riser in the first Kiss tour. And he was back, I think that was like 96 or something. And he's looking down and he's like, hi, Chris. And it's like so weird seeing Ace Frehley in the makeup call you out from a riser above the crowd. And then, I got called up to do that metal head to head thing because my guy, Steve Seabury, was doing my personal management, the guy who owns the High River Sausage Company. He's the president of
Hmm.
High River, the hot sauce company. He was working for eMusic and he was doing personal management. He was working as my manager, business manager at the time. And he's like, I got this thing I want you to do. They're doing it's called Metal Head to Head, and I think it'd be fun for you to go do it with Ace. And I did that thing that day. It was funny because Ace had no idea what he was supposed to do. You were supposed to go there and like ask the person questions. You were the
Yeah.
interviewer. So the idea was to show up with some knowledge of what to act. So it's like I coached Ace Frehley through asking him questions about me and TSO and what I was doing. And it was just funny. The producers of the show were like, thank you. Because Ace just didn't really know what it was, but it was a lot of fun. And unfortunately, it wasn't the last time I saw him. I saw him at a friend of mine who was a bodyguard for Ace and a really good friend. Ace went to his father's funeral, which happened to be in the same military cemetery as my dad. And I saw Ace there. And that was the last time I saw Ace. And then oddly enough, my mom, it was the first reason why I met Ace, passed away a couple weeks before him.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Real full circle. That's it must have been cool to have that friendship though.
Yeah,
To
as a little
meet.
kid when Ace Frehley was when you're sitting there trading jokes with Ace Frehley at that age, and it was a lot of fun. He would teach me some things to do with amps, and he was just Ace. It was cool. I was happy to see him doing what he was doing. That Frehley's Comet record was awesome, and those shows were great with him and Todd and John Reagan. I mean, it was a really great band.
So, um, I only have a couple more questions for you, but what is the best piece of advice that another musician gave you?
Hmm. I'm trying to think the best piece of advice. I mean, Glenn Tipton, when we went to with Priest, he would always sit there and say, protect your publishing. And it's just like, yeah, I understand that. The business aspects of it were something that musicians would always tell you to keep an eye on your investments. And as you
Mm,
watch what's going on with the value of some of these bands' catalogs, now you understand why that
yeah.
was so important, So that's probably right there. I think that I tend to give myself my best advice, believe it or not.
Mm,
I give this advice to people because I left Sabotage when I was 21 and my I was going back to work with my brother in our band and so many good things happened on that Gutter Ballet tour and I had so many fans and friends and things that never happened to me before and part of you believed that it was going to be easy to do on your own because of that and it isn't.
mm,
I think that never believe your own hype, I think, is a good advice for any musician, and to always keep working on yourself because you're your best tool. And, I can't change the fact that I'm not 21. I'll never look 21 again, but I can try to keep myself playing at a good level and if I can a better level and looking as good as I can and you know, trying to be the best person possible. I mean, nobody's perfect. I went through years when everybody's run their mouth and said something they shouldn't have, done things they shouldn't have. It's just a human being. It's going to happen. The important thing
hmm.
about that is try to be somebody different and to grow up and to move past. And I mean, Paul would be really good with a lot of different things with that kind of stuff because if you did something that like I said, bringing up things that you grew up on or you grew past or were able to correct. Paul was good at being able to tell you, don't dwell on that, learn from it and move on. And I think that's the most important thing. I always tell guitar players, I think it's really important to find themselves. You listen to these other players and you do what these other people do. And I think it's kind of like that with any music. You just try to make your identify yourself, and then make yourself somebody who people want to work with.
Hmm.
Don't be the person that's the a-hole, that people go, I work with that guy, he's an a-hole. And I get that out of a lot of people I've worked with myself. You know, the people who probably thought I was at some point, but I think I said everybody has their moments, but I mean, there's a lot of people that I've worked with that I even if I have to work and really don't want to, it's like there's people that just have something about them that's not fun to work with. And it's like there's that element of that I guess goes back to, like I said, don't believe your own hype and just try to be as good as you can is what you do. And I'm trying to think of other things. There was actually a guitar player that I worked with when I was out of Sabotage right before Dr. Butcher, a kid named Al Romano that he was actually working with Ray Gillen at the time at this thing called Sun Red Sun, and Al was a brilliant guitar player, and he had taken lessons at a very young age from Leslie West, and he would go and trade very, very expensive guitars, and he would give things to great guitar players, and they would give him lessons and advice, and he learned from Schenker, and he learned from Uli, and he learned from Ingve, and he was
Wow.
just a really brilliant guitar player. And I was a decent player at that time, but I picked up one of his guitars and I played, and he listened to my demos, and he thought they were cool, the stuff I was doing. And he looked at me and he said, "Well, how long you been playing like a girl?" And I was like, he handed me this Flying V that I still have, where the strings were like off the neck and it had really heavy strings on it, this little
Yeah.
Fender Princeton amp. And he said, when you can play out of this guitar just like you did with these 12s on it, I think it was, and he says, we'll talk. And he changed the way I picked up and held and played a guitar.
Hmm.
That whole science that, like what Leslie West had said to me when the sound comes from your hands. It's a cycle of sound, and you play like your life depends on it, and you put that into guitars, and that's why the blues players' fingers were bleeding,
Yeah.
and it's like that element. I think that is what changed my guitar playing, and I never, I can play not warming up.
Yeah.
And I play better if I do warm up, but it was just that way of getting my hands strong enough in the way I play to where I was never going to have somebody say that to me again. Not that, it's no offense to women. There's a lot of great women guitar players nowadays.
Oh,
But
for
back at
sure.
that point in time, back in when was that? Probably 92. There wasn't any female guitar player I could think of at that point in time. It was playing like Nita Strauss.
Yeah.
No, no way were there. It's like it was a few power chords and a couple, little leads that were going out were decent in a lot of the songs that were out there, but there wasn't any shredders
No.
amongst that. So there was definitely kind of like, the difference between kind of like you know, a, a basic hair metal guitar player that just started playing guitar and a Malmsteen, and that's where I
Right.
looked at it. I was like, wow, I gotta make sure I don't hear them. And I practiced my butt off for a few years and really lifted my guitar playing to another level. And I still do, I still keep playing. I play all the time now. I pick up the guitar now. It'll be days when my hands will be moving and I'm like, wow, this is a lot different than it was 20 years ago.
So, um, through your career, you've gotten to share the stage with so many legendary musicians. Who were some of the musicians that made you go, "Holy shit, I'm standing here on stage with this person"?
Well, the thing is, the ones like that were so cool that they didn't make you feel like that. Like Steven Tyler just made you feel like you were in a band with Steven Tyler.
Yeah.
And same with Roger Daltrey. Although when you got on the stage and you watched the way the people were looking at him, then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, it's Steven Tyler. And it's like, but they were always they were so nice and it was so relaxing. I went in and to see Tyler in his dressing room and get him to sign my guitar. And I said, we've had a lot of special guests, but I said, you're really one of the first ones that comes from one of the bands that I grew up listening to. I liked Yes,
Hmm.
but my brother was more of a prog rock fan than me, and I liked Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but my brother was more of the prog rock fan than me. So when we had the guy from Aerosmith, I was like, yeah, it was to me. I mean, even Bob Kinkle going, you're going to be happy this year. And he handed me a recording of Sweet Emotion, and I was like, no way. And I said that to Steven Tyler. I said, yeah, I wasn't as big of a Yes or ELP fan as I was Aerosmith. And he looks at me, he goes, good. So I was like, all right, I can play with this guy. It was cool. I've had a lot of those moments. It was fun. I met Priest when I was 12. I won a
Oh,
backstage
wow.
contest to meet them when I was 12 years old. And KK Downing said, what do you want to be when you get older? I said, I want to be like you. And then Sabotage opened for Priest. So it was always like so surreal being out on that tour with them, and then I would always think of the time when I met them and how young I was and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I mean, we're playing Sweden Rock going right on before Maiden, and I think Sabotage opened for Maiden on in Tampa once, but I wasn't in the band at that time, and I don't think we've done a show going on right before Maiden since I've been in the band. So for me, I'm gonna be like really nervous with that one. It's fun because I meet those guys and I met Maiden back at that time, so I've known Adrian Smith since I was like 13, and I just I've always been a really huge fan of his. But I met Yannick, and when I told him who I was, he was just like, "Oh my God, Hall of the Mountain King's one of my favorite records." So it's like it's a little bit easier to go and play with those guys when you know they really like what it is that you do. I remember the first time I met Lemmy when Sabotage had toured with Motorhead for the Power of the Night tour, and I met him in a bar in Athens, Greece, and I said, "Lemmy, hi, I'm Chris from Sabotage, and I play guitar in Sabotage now." And he's like, "Sabotage, great fucking band." And it was just
That's
really
great,
cool.
dude.
And we played opening for Motorhead at a festival in Austria, and Phil Campbell walked into my dressing room after we played, and he says, "Lem wants to see you." And I'm like, "All right." So I go in their dressing room, and he said, we've been playing. I don't know how long it was at that point in time, maybe close to 30 years then, but it was like we've only had 11 people play on stage at Motorhead. We'd like you to be the 12th. So they asked me to go up and play because they
Wow.
were mentioning to when they played with Sabotage back on the Power of Night tour how blown away they were by Chris Oliva, and Lemmy and Phil Campbell said, "Chris Oliva lives in you." So it
Wow.
was pretty cool. So
Damn,
I've had
dude.
my moments. Yeah.
um, Last question I have for you, man. Who are some of the newer bands out there on your radar? Are you into any of like the newer metal bands that are
There's
kind of
so
emerging?
many. It's
Yeah.
just so many of them. Um, it's not even necessarily a newer one, but one of the ones that's, I think, fallen onto my radar more just because of how big he's gotten is Fallen in Reverse. I think that Radke's really doing a lot of things that are impressive to me. He's so creative, so smart. He's such a great songwriter. People may not love him because he says what he wants to say, but
Yeah.
so a lot of people don't like, and I'm not going to run down names of musicians that have said too much to piss people off, but they're there. But I just watch his videos and listen to his music and watch what he did, and it's just impressive. I watch how he's always tries to stay ahead of the game with his videos and with the way he is selling merchandise. He actually kind of reminds me a lot of me in the way he creates too. He's
Mm.
he's all over the map, which I think is great. When he does these songs with the country artists and these other things, and then his songs and his videos, they're all like complete movies in one song, and I think it's really good. So, there's some great bands with amazing female singers, that
Yeah.
we've been doing shows with, like the Visions of Atlantis, and so I would love to get to see the band Ginger live. I think they're
Hmm.
they're really good, and it was mind blowing to see how good what Lauren did with this new Arch Enemy song. It's just
Yeah.
like I've always been a fan of Arch because I've been a friend of Jeff Loomis for so long, and I'm excited that Nevermore's back. It's not a
Same.
new band, but like I'm doing shows with them and other bands that have been my friends forever, like Armored Saint and Metal Church, were on a lot of the same shows. So it's just like new and old. I like a lot of the bands that are out there now. I watch a lot of these things and a lot of these bands like the Parkway Drive band that just get so big and you didn't even know who they were before
Yeah.
they're doing arenas. It's like you watch them hit, and it's just like I said, time flies by, man. That's why I wanted to get out and play with Sabotage again, because I want to be able to have those people have a chance to see what it is we do.
You know, in terms of female fronted bands that are out there right now, I have to give a special shout out to Mariah Formica and Plush. Um, she's killing it. She's blown up so much. She's such a workhorse. She played local clubs here. Like I'm on Long Island. She played local clubs here for years, and then one day I see Plush, and Plush is this
Well,
big name opening
she's
for.
got one of those all-time priceless voices. My dog is going to freak out. We've been on doing this for like an hour and a half, so I got to get running because he's going
Okay.
to start barking.
Chris, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show, telling the legitimately amazing stories that you shared, and for being such an insanely cool guy, taking time out of your schedule just to talk to me. I can't tell you what it means to me, my friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's going to wrap things up for us today, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in again. Make sure you go follow every band that you heard on today's Top 10. If you're in Europe and you find your way to a Sabotage show, get there, dude. Enjoy the show. Sabotage, hopefully they're going to be bringing things back to the States sooner than later. If you just listen to the interview, you know it's in the works. But if you're in the States, get out and see Trans-Siberian this winter. Chris plays all the East Coast dates. He's one of my all-time favorite guitarists. I am proud to call him a friend of the show. Chris, it means the world to me that you took some time to hang with me. Hopefully one day I can meet you face to face. Guys, if you have not already, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on Spotify or YouTube. Get automatically notified when episodes are posted. Go follow my socials on Instagram, on Facebook. Like I said, if I end up on that curse ass app TikTok, I'll let you know. Just know that I'm not having fun on it, okay? But yeah, if you see something that intrigues you on my pages, just engage with it, dude. Like, shoot me a comment, message, whatever the hell. Just keep the algorithm going. I need the support. I appreciate you for the support. Thank you so much for everything you guys do for me. None of it goes taken for granted. You've been listening to the Face of Music podcast, everybody. Be well, be safe, and I will see you again soon. Peace.